Well, welcome back to tonight's Neurolive, and tonight I'm going to be talking about, is screen time really a bad thing? Now, all we hear about is how bad screen time is and how blue lights that are emitted from our screens are going to cause problems by increasing our arousal. It's been a massive thing, as we know, for a few years in the pretty much the research across the world has been talking about this. So tonight I want to talk about this, and I want to tell you about some new information that is actually saying that it's not such a simple black and white thing that all screen time is bad for you and that you just need to stop using your computer at night or your phone at night and it's going to keep you awake. It's not as black and white and as clear and as simple as that. There's actually a little bit more to the story. So I'm going to talk about that tonight, and I'm going to explain what the new research is and just that, and give you some tips to help you, because it's very much, well, you're going to see what it is. So let's dive in and talk about this. Okay, so let me just adjust my computer here quickly. So as technology advances, sleep duration decreases. That has been a pretty established kind of thing. So we improve technology and then people have more sleep problems. But is this a causative link? Is the one causing the other, or is it actually a correlation? And is it maybe we need to look at this differently? We've been told this, but what is the actual truth? So, intuitively, it seems like the right thing, and intuitively, we've experienced that. So there's definitely a logical link between how we use technology and how it affects our sleep. But the key issue is not so much that there's this causative link in one direction. What the new research is showing is that it's bidirectional. And what I mean by that is, if you think of a highway or a 2-lane highway, the traffic, it's one highway, but there's traffic going in two directions, one going this way and one going this way. So one highway, two directions. And that's a better way to think about the impact of technology on our sleep, is that for some people, it does have an effect, and for other people, it doesn't. It's bidirectional. And so what the research is actually showing us is that it needs to be customized, that what works for some doesn't work for others, and we can't just have this blanket black and white rule that all technology is going to affect your sleep and that you must move TVs and phones out of your bedroom and you must stop looking at phones for 2 hours before you go to sleep and you mustn't this, and a lot of rules that have all had really, really good intentions. There's a whole industry that has built around this, a whole sort of industry within the market, the well-being and self-help market. And that's good because people are trying to improve their sleep. And we all know that if you don't sleep, it has all kinds of implications health-wise and mental health and that kind of thing. So we know that there is a link between lack of sleep and mental health and physical problems. But this direct causative link, this research, it's not as clear. It's not as black and white. It's this bidirectional thing. So what works for some doesn't work for others. So for example, for me, I always fall asleep watching something or reading something on my phone. So lights are off and all I've got is my phone. My husband's asleep, my dogs are asleep on top of me, and I'm on my phone either watching something like Bridgerton or Downton Abbey or something like that, or I'm reading some fiction novel or something, and I read until I fall asleep. And honestly, within 10 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on what time I get into bed and what my day's been like and how I've calmed down my mind and all that kind of thing, I'm asleep. And so it's not worrying me. And I've actually done a lot of research now, searching and finding a lot of other people are also experiencing the same thing. A lot of other people are finding that it's okay to have the TV in bed. It's okay in the bedroom. It's okay to sit on your phone or your iPad or something. Even video games, even certain video games are actually helping people sleep. So some people, and there's quite a large body of research, is showing that some people benefit from having the technology when they go to sleep. But once again, it's not now throw the one out with the other. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's this bidirectional thing that for some people it's bad, and for some people it's good, and for some people it needs to be you need to find sort of your mix of good and bad, of what is going to work for you and what's not going to work. So it's very personalized and it's very customized. And in order to find what works for you, you need to do a little bit of experimentation, and a little bit of searching, and a little bit of a little bit of working out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And, that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. So just to come back to a little bit of research, there was, over the past 10 years, this has been a huge thing over the past 10 years, and rightfully so. I'm not saying we've got to, technology is here to stay. AI is here to stay. Cell phones are here to stay, and they're going to get more and more advanced and more attractive. So, this is a fact. It's here to stay. So we've got this technology. So it's not a matter of, eliminating the technology or bringing in all these rules that are kind of almost impossible to keep, unless they work for you. What we need to recognize is that it's here to stay. What the underlying or overarching thing is that we need to learn to manage the technology. And I've said this before, AI is here to stay. We've got to manage the technology. We've got to manage our mind. It's always about managing. We've got to use our mind to manage technology. There's so many benefits of technology, and this research is showing, as I've just been saying, that there are benefits. Some people really benefit from being on their cell phone when they go to bed. As I said, I'm one of those people. And, this is something, in the well-being world and working around with the well-being mafia and going to these conferences, and they're all talking about, blue light blockers. And if I put those blue light blocker sunglasses on, I get a headache. In fact, they make me feel a little bit nauseous. I can't stand wearing them. Yet other people swear by them. So it's never black and white. And I think this is what happens whenever something new comes into our lives, and, technology is just moving so jolly fast that we find something, we do some research, we see some things happening, we see a decrease in sleep linked with advances in technology, and these research, yes, but conclusions people jump to conclusions, and then extreme measures are taken, and they're all with good intentions. And there's always good in all those measures that you can use to help you sleep, blue blocks and all that stuff. But we've got to find what works for us. So it's interesting because the actual study, the evidence over the past 10 years has actually shown that the link between technology and sleep is much more nuanced and complex than originally thought. So around about 10 years ago, there was a study that showed it can slow down sleep. Using your cell phone before you go to bed can slow down sleep by about 10 minutes. And that study, there was a few others done. And so it was one kind of smallish study that kind of got this ball rolling. And then more studies have been done over the past 10 years. And the more this has been researched, the more nuanced it's becoming. The whole concept of technology and sleep is becoming. And I'm not talking about other elements of technology. I'm talking specifically tonight about sleep and technology and the impact and the link between them. So the mechanisms that were commonly thought to explain why technology could cause sleep problems, which is arousal and bright light, are surprisingly not well supported by the research. So some of the main things were the blue light that's emitted affects melatonin, and melatonin is needed for sleep, and it reduces melatonin, and it also creates too much, the bright light, the blue light creates too much arousal, and that combination is what keeps people awake. And so that's where there was this radical response. But looking back and doing the reviews on the research, these scientists, I didn't do this, these other scientists have done this, is that it doesn't always cause a negative effect. And what's more, the mechanisms that are commonly thought to explain why technology use would cause problems, that is the arousal and the bright light, are surprisingly not well supported by research. So the main research on this shows that the longest reported delay in falling asleep is 10 minutes from a study done about 10 years ago, okay? So it would seem from new research, and I'm just reading this, so I want to get this accurate, the extent of the effects explained by bright screens and arousing content are weaker than first hypothesized. So it's not as strong. It's not that it's not there, but it's not this hard and fast rule. Okay, so another point of note is that most of the attention in researching this link between sleep and cell phone use just before bed, or technology, could be your computer, your iPad, your cell phone, TV, has been done on adolescents and young adults. But there's very, very little, these studies on younger children, 0 through up to adolescence, so 0 through 12, and then adults is lacking. So these decisions have been made mainly on very limited research that has been shown to be tenuous and much more nuanced, and on mainly adolescents, okay, and young adults. So we don't have enough studies in younger children. There's more done now, and more being called for, and in adults. So you can't pick one part of the population. And, adolescents and young adults are going through major changes in their entire mind and body network, as is every stage of our life. So you can't take one stage and then apply it across the board. And that's what's been done in this research. We have to look at all ages. And so there's been a big call for a lot more research, which is fantastic. There's a lot of great research out there on this, and I will be doing, there's a lot of great research, and I can put some of I think what we'll do is attach a resource so that you guys can go have a look at this research, because it's pretty fascinating. And there's a lot more that is coming. So this really does make sense to me. As I said, I fall asleep at night reading on my phone or watching something on my phone. Okay, so the main, just a little bit more about the research, the main theoretical change, therefore, in looking at this relationship between the use of technology and sleep problems is to look in two directions, this bidirectional thing. So the question being asked now is that, did the technology, so this bidirectional thing, did the technology cause your sleep issue, or did you already have the sleep issue prior to using the technology? And did the technology make it worse, or did it help you? Now, those are the questions that are being asked now and were starting to be asked over the last 10 years. And I was showing this, that actually you've got to make a distinction, because sometimes people already had sleep issues from whatever, from trauma, from biological issues, from medications they're on, from sicknesses, etc., from undealt with issues and so on. And then adding the technology to that, that's a bad combination. That's explosive, especially if you then watch things that make you feel even worse. So if you watch scary things, or you watch things that make you even more upset, and you're really upset, that's just going to add fuel to the fire. But it's not a blanket all approach, that you can't paint it with one brush. That's what I mean, more better than sort of black and white situation. Okay, so we've got to ask these questions about, did you have a sleep problem before? And has the technology made it worse? Or were you sleeping fine? This is the other direction. Were you sleeping fine, and then adding technology to your routine made your sleep worse? So we've got to ask those questions and find which combination it is, and it's unique to every person. And it's unique to every age group. We've got to then do a lot of research to account for, what do we have to watch out, for example, adolescents and young adults, where most of the research has pretty much been done. We know that there's a lot of changes happening, and we know that there's a need for a lot of connection with adults, and a need for a lot of guidelines and rules, and setting times to go to bed, and talking through and explaining the reasons why technology can be problematic, and whatever. So we're going to get to some tips on that in a moment. A researcher called Dr. Gradisar was one of the first researchers to actually propose back in 2010 about the dangers of blue light increasing alertness and affecting sleep. And since then, he has changed his mind and done more research and said, we've got to consider this bidirectional thing. We've got to see, did you have the sleep problem, then the technology made it worse, or made it better? Or were you sleeping fine, and then the technology was added and made it worse? So him and his team have done some interesting research. One of them was that they looked at the effect of the different types of screens. So let me just make sure I get it right here. They looked at the comparison between, so you go, a bright white screen, a dim white screen, and a bright white screen with blue light emissions. Okay, and so they've all got blue light emissions, but they did a bright white screen, a dim white screen, and a bright white screen. Okay, and what they did was they compared the ability to fall asleep and stay asleep with this group of subjects, and what they found was pretty much no difference. So this is a very interesting finding, that there was pretty much no difference. And so he changed his perspective, and he was one of the first to say it does. And now this research is saying, well, actually it doesn't. And we need to look at this in a very much an individualist, each person individually. So basically, evening technology, guys, is here to stay. We all know that. We all enjoy it. And bright light and arousal do not seem to matter as much as how we manage our screen time in the evening. So the key here is not the blue light and the arousal. It's how we manage it. It's how the blue light may affect you and may make you crazy and stay awake, then you're not going to use it. But if it doesn't affect you and actually helps you like me, then I'm going to use it. So that's what we're going to talk about. That's what we need to be doing. We need to move to understanding how to manage it rather than putting in all these rules to restrict it. So there's some action tips that we can apply to help you determine, what is your customized, what's your ideal plan for technology and sleep. And so what's really key is mind drives brain and body. The brain and the body don't think. The mind is the thinker, and it uses the brain and the body. The mind puts everything in the brain and the body, and the three together are a connected network and drive how we show up in life. So if our mind is messy and we're not managing, all our minds are messy, but if we're not managing our messy minds, that's when that will definitely put our mind-brain-body network into a state that will affect our sleep. And so all of us basically need to be working on that aspect, because for example, I'll take myself as an example. The only time I can't sleep is when I'm worked up, when I'm worried about something, I have got undealt with traumas, I just didn't deal with an issue, and my mind's messy, and I just haven't resolved it and haven't sorted it out, and I'm really worried and anxious, and etc. And that keeps me awake. So no amount of not using a screen, whatever, that's normally when the best thing I can do to calm down is actually to sit up, take some deep breaths, get out my phone and watch something really fun, like Abbott Elementary or Bridgerton or Downton Abbey or something, or I like Grey's Anatomy or whatever. Watch something that is just going to relax my mind, or read a fiction book that I love. I'm always reading something, and then that calms me down and gets me out of that state and gets me to a state. And then, but I don't ignore that trauma or that undealt with thing or that worry. I acknowledge that worry, which is really important. Acknowledge the worry and deal with it. And I talk, that's with the Neurocycle, it's fantastic, because when you go to bed and you recognize, hey, I'm worried, I'm anxious, I acknowledge that this is this and this and this is the issue, maybe type it in your phone. That's what I do. I'll sit up, realize I can't sleep, worrying like crazy, make a little note on my phone of the things that are worrying me, send myself a text or put it in my notes. And then I'll say, okay, I'm too tired to work on that now. I can't resolve all that now. Or maybe I'll even do a little mini Neurocycle just to kind of get it into a place where I can, park it for a while. And then I will go and watch something simple or read my book, whichever of the two, and relax and calm down. And sometimes in those cases, it's not 10 or 20 or 30 minutes. It might take me 2 hours, but I eventually will go into a sleep. And even if I only get a couple of hours of sleep, because I have calmed myself down and dealt with my mind and used the technology, for me, I'll calm down and have a good sleep. Now, if you're on the other side of the highway and the technology will make you worse, well, then you're not going to use the technology. Then it's really important, though, to do that, maybe do a little mini Neurocycle, and then to decide maybe you're going to get up out of bed and out of bed, go out of that place where you can't sleep and go maybe and sit and read a book that's not technology, if the technology freaks you out. So have books on hand. I've got a nice big fat book over here, and I've got this book. So some nights, if I do feel, reading this at the moment, okay? So some nights, if I feel like I can't do the technology, I don't feel like lying in bed with the dark around me and the light on, I'll get up, go and grab a blanket, sit in a cozy corner of my sitting room, and I'll pick up the book and I'll read until I feel asleep, I feel sleepy. And there are nights where I'm up, and this doesn't happen often, but this may happen to you as well, where I am up all night and I don't freak out. And I'm going to do another Neurolive on how to fall asleep and that kind of thing. But I'm going to tell you now that, it's better to just, instead of sitting up worrying all night, I'd rather sit up reading my book all night. So acknowledge the worry, do a little mini Neurocycle, go and read my book. And sometimes I've stopped, if it's really bad, I've stopped reading the book, but it's calmed me down enough. And then I can actually do a Neurocycle and try and handle or start handling what I need to deal with in that moment.